Very warm welcome. My name is Roland Peens, and I'm a wine specialist with Strauss Co, as well as director at retailer Wine Cellar. And we're here today to discuss NFTs and wine, and we've got a fantastic panel of participants. Andrea Molyneux, I'm sure you all know from Molyneux Family Wines. We have Gert-Jan van Rooyen, who is a CEO of Fanfire, the partner in this collaboration, as well as associate professor at Stellenbosch Extraordinaire, and Susie Goodman to my right, who's the executive director of Strauss Co. So we're talking about the fine wine NFTs that Strauss Co are offering on the online auction at the moment on straussart.co.za. You can register and sign up and start bidding already. The auction will run until the 25th. It's an online auction, and we're going to be delving into how to bid, what NFTs are about. We're going to talk a little bit about the fine wines that are within the NFTs and have some fun while we've got some wine in our hands. So let's start at the beginning. What are the Strauss Co fine wine NFTs? And maybe we'll go to Gert-Jan and ask him, what is an NFT?
So NFT, and not to get too technical, is really just an ownership certificate. It's something, a digital certificate that says you own something. That could be a digital artwork, it could be a ticket to a concert, it could be a bottle of fine wine, it could be the privilege to meet with someone, really anything that we can imagine. And at Fanfire, we're trying to figure out new ways of using these digital certificates that live on something called the blockchain, and figure out how they make existing industries new and exciting in new ways.
Okay, can you tell us what the blockchain is in just a few sentences?
It's really just a ledger that's very difficult to tamper with. So it's digital books that once it's in that ledger, somebody can't go back and change it again. So if I own the NFT that represents a bottle of wine, and it's in that ledger. That's the proof of my ownership. And if I want to give it to Susie or sell it to Susie, it moves to her wallet on that blockchain, and she becomes the registered owner, and there's no way to fake that.
Okay, and do we need to differentiate here between physical assets and digital assets? Does it matter with NFTs?
Not really, no. I think in the popular consciousness, people think of NFTs as these digital blockchain things. There's been lots of hype around digital art and how NFTs make it possible to own and to sell digital art. But we've been working with NFTs for almost a decade now. At Custos, one of the other companies I was involved in, we used a very, very early form of NFT to trace pirates stealing movies. So incredible range of things that you can do. But what I'm really excited about in this space is you can use an NFT as an ownership certificate for something in the real world. The trick is just how do you trust that that thing is really in the real world? And I think that's why we partner with somebody like Strauss.
Okay, so let's get it out the way. Do you have to have laser eyes to bid on this NFT?
No, you don't. And that's really bee I have in my bonnet is blockchain and crypto has been this or become this cool crypto bro thing. And it might be really inaccessible to people who are interested in what NFTs can mean for ownership and collection and trading, but where all of the tech talk just obfuscates what you can do with it. So we try to build a system where it's as simple as going to an online store and purchasing something without having to know anything about cryptocurrency or blockchains or Web3 wallets or anything like that. We'd really like to demystify the tech.
Great. Okay, well, let's talk about the Strauss Fine Wine NFTs with the Villafonte Series C. This is an incredible collection. It's the complete collection of Villafonte for the first 25 years, and that coincides nicely with 25 years of Villafonte. I think that Mike Radcliffe, Norma, Zelma Long, and Phil Free started the venture 25 years ago. So the Strauss Villafonte Series C NFT runs from 2003, the first vintage, all the way through to 2027. And in this NFT, you basically get a collection of 6 bottles of each of the vintages. So 25 vintages, 6 bottles each. That's 150 bottles. And of course, not all of those wines exist yet. As they're produced, they will be added to the blockchain and added to the NFT. So, Andrea or Susie, you wanted to talk.
Ask you something. I think it's quite amazing to be able to buy the 150 bottles from Villafonte, but I love the fact that you're actually selling future. And as we were talking about the harvest this season, what does that mean for those vineyards, or those vintages? Sorry, I think that's the bit that excites me, and it's very different in an auction house because normally you stand up and say, here is the item in front of you, lot 3, but now we've got lot 3 and future, which I think is liberating actually.
Yeah, great thing about the NFTs is they have a historical part, a current part, and a future part, which really gives you the opportunity to own the entire collection, which is fantastic about the Series C. Okay, let's move on to the benefits of NFTs. We're selling these collections of wines, and you might be asking at home, well, why don't I just buy the collection? Why do I need to have an NFT for this? What do you think, Gert-Jan?
I think what's important to us is with something like this, we decoupling the ownership of a wine, the ownership of a physical asset with actual physical possession. And wine isn't something you want to truck around too much. You'd really like it to stay in cellar conditions and not move it, even if it's being traded between collectors. And what's possible here is you have a wine with already a code on the label that we can associate with the NFT. So there's a one-to-one relationship between a specific bottle and a specific NFT. And these can be traded, and they can be made part of a collection. The entire collection can be sold and resold. And it makes it much, much easier to own that wine without having it shipped to you until the day you're ready to drink it.
Andrea, what do you feel about NFTs? When did you start hearing about NFTs? What are your thoughts on this release?
I mean, as a winemaker, I'm probably a little bit late to the NFT game, but our son actually released a wine on NFT because this is the future of trading, of currency, of commodities as well. And so it's amazing that our 13-year-old son was more versed in it than we were, but it's a great way to start. And I think that, why this is so important to be sold as an NFT is that the trajectory of wine, especially for these iconic wines in South Africa, is just incredibly steep. The wines are under more and more demand. The wines are getting better and better as winemakers in South Africa. They're really honing their skills. The wines are getting better, and the scores are showing it. When you have these international wine reviewers and these scores that are coming out of it, then more and more consumers are aware, they want it more. And so to be able to put together a collection of past, present, and future of these wines is an incredibly rare opportunity. In fact, it's the only opportunity to get them with this NFT, and it just ensures that you will secure those wines going into the future when they are going to be under tremendous demand and probably tremendous prices in the future as well.
From us as an auction house, I think one thing that I would like to ask you is that, in a sense, you're being exposed to such a huge market now, because the NFT world is a global phenomenon, and it's not like we're selling wine only to South Africa or to reach that of buyers and sellers that we know, but we're selling it to new markets, new collectors who maybe have never actually bought in a South African auction house ever before. So I find that also quite, it must be for a winemaker here, that must be also, not that you have not got international exposure, but you're now upping the game into a market that maybe you wouldn't have reached through your normal avenues of your broker or your selling. So I think that...
Absolutely. And then the added benefit, and probably for a wine collector, one of the most important things is not just the quality of the wine, it's the provenance. And, ensuring that every step of the way, the traceability, the cellaring, the previous price history, depending on if people trade into the future, it's all recorded. And as you said, it can't be tampered with.
Well, that's maybe a good point to make, is the fine wine market in South Africa is very small. Strauss Co, wine cellar, and Hugo Jacobs collaborated in 2019 to start Strauss Co Fine Wines, and we've been auctioning off South African and other great wines in the South African market, and it's become quite successful and really has reached a new high of investing in South African wines, which wasn't available before. Certainly you could buy wines for investment, but selling them was always tricky, and now there is a conduit, there is a platform where you can sell fine wines, and they can become quite investable. Andrea could tell you how much the Olerese trades on the open market compared to how much it was released at, for instance.
Yeah, I mean it's gone up a couple 100% on the open market, which is phenomenal for being able to make a wine that has that kind of reputation. But I love how in this platform, it just really is more traceable. It's not just looking on the internet at what prices may or may not have been, or speculation. It actually is something that you can trace, through the blockchain.
And there's been only 2 editions of the Olerese, right?
Yeah, so in our case, it's one of the youngest wines. It is the youngest wine that is on the auction. So the Olerese, we've only released 2 editions, and what's going to be happening in the future is the amount that we're going to be releasing, because it took 15 years to develop. The amount that we're going to be releasing is going to be less and less, but more frequently. So I'm sure we'll be talking about our NFT, and I can get back into that later. But yeah, it is right now only 2.
I think it's a great example of where you have a very young new wine, and where you're really investing in the future of in the future editions of the wine, because we've got how many editions in the collection itself?
Yeah, there are 20 iterations of the Maloney Olerese. But let's just finish off with the Villafonte. It's a Bordeaux style blend, the Series C, from the Paarl side of the Simonsberg mountain. It's considered a luxurious modern icon. And what's remarkable, having tasted through all the wines and been along the journey along with Villafonte, these wines are all in fantastic condition, and we just don't have the reference point from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s like the Napa Valley has, or like Bordeaux has, to know how long these wines are going to last. And I can tell you the 2003 is still in fantastic shape, and it shows that there's a lot of potential to come. But this is maybe a good point to talk about the connection between NFTs and the seal code. Gert-Jan?
Yes, so something, and Andrea and I had a conversation about this. This is actually a very, very South African thing, that the wine bottles have these seal codes on the back that's unique to the specific bottle of wine. You can trace a bottle right back to the seller using that. And what we're doing with the Strauss NFTs is we embedding that seal code into the NFT itself. So suddenly you've got this direct connection between a physical object, not just a theoretical, what we'd call a fungible bottle of wine that can be exchanged for anything else, but really a unique bottle that's associated with a unique token. And that token can now be traded, and you can keep it until the day that the token and the bottle meet each other, and you claim the wine and open the cork.
Well, I mean, that's a good time to highlight the older wines that we're selling in these NFTs. The first vintage of Meerlust Rubicon is in 1980, and there are only 3 bottles left at the property. And kindly one was added to this NFT. So you know that you're buying the best possible Meerlust Rubicon 1980. We have a warm climate in South Africa. There aren't a lot of large professional storage operations. So often, as a retailer, would find vintage South African wine, but it wouldn't always be in the best condition. We now know that in this NFT, you're buying the absolute mint stock. Excuse the pun.
Well, from our side in the art world, I mean, talk about fantastic provenance. I mean, coming straight out of the cellar of the producer, straight to guarantee that the owner has got that lineage and history documented. I mean, that is, you often wish an artwork could tell you that history, whereas you've actually now documented it for this. I mean, it's amazing.
And Katjan, moving forward, if the bottles were to be traded, those transactions then get recorded on the blockchain. Is that right?
That's right. So talking about provenance, we mint these tokens. That's the technical term for creating a new NFT from a wallet that's unique to Strauss. So there's a little wallet. Inside the wallet, there's a NFT called Strauss.NFT. There's a domain that belongs to Strauss. So anyone 50 years in the future can look back to where the NFT came from and verify that it's a Strauss original. And then each time somebody purchases the NFT on the, it could be on the FanFi marketplace, it could be on a large third-party marketplace like OpenSea, that transaction gets recorded. There's an amount of cryptocurrency, amount of money that gets paid for the NFT. At FanFi, we can manage that crypto transaction on your behalf. But you can trace exactly how that NFT moved and what prices were paid for it. So you have this price history, which I think historically that's something that's been difficult to trace.
Can I ask a cheeky question? What happens if you really feel like drinking that? I know you shouldn't, but well, maybe you want to. That one bottle that's from 1980. How do you then adapt the token?
So I said that when you create a new token, we call it minting,
Yes.
and when you destroy it, you call it burning. So when you arrive at the seller, we
Yes.
facilitate a process where you present your ownership of the NFT, so we can verify that you are in fact the owner of the NFT and not somebody hoping to score a really good bottle of wine. And then we destroy that NFT. It can't be traded anymore. It can be seen on the blockchain that wine has been claimed.
But would
you
you
get the bottle.
remint it if I had just removed one? If the rest of the lot was still the same, but I removed only one bottle, would you recreate it?
Yes. So
Adapt it, maybe,
something that's completely unique to the Strauss NFT is we created a new kind of what's called a smart contract. The things living on the blockchain. That's a collection of NFTs, a vault of all of these little bottles living together inside a closed vault. And if you want to go and drink a particular bottle of wine, you open your vault, you take out that NFT, you can trade it, or you can go to the seller and claim it. But all the rest stay intact. And you can trade, as a matter of fact, the remaining NFTs in bulk as a entire vertical collection still.
I was going to say these are the first fine wines on the blockchain, but Jay-Z's wine is on the blockchain, having already released an NFT. But some of the foremost fine wines on the blockchain, and I think it's great. There's a 1986 Van der Constance, for instance, now that's on the blockchain for future trade. That wine wasn't even released; it was just an experimental release from Plain Constantia. So very, very fine, very fine wines. So. What you're talking about, Katjan, is about trust in the transaction. Coming from a fine wine background and trading Bordeaux Premiers, for instance, we would get an invoice and we would just assume that invoice then correlates to the wine. Here you're actually getting trust with the transaction.
That's right, and trust that the physical asset is there to back the NFT as well, and that's why it's important to have supplies of trust in a system like this. So if I purchase an Irma Stern from a Strauss auction,
Thank you.
I'll get my wallet. I know I have trust that that's an original and not a knockoff because you provide that trust.
Yeah, and that's part of our brand. Is that
Exactly.
if we say it's an Stern, it definitely is.
So any crypto cowboy can create NFTs and claim that there's a canonical behind that. But where you come in is providing the trust that you've worked with the sellers, you've guaranteed that that wine is available, that the particular coded wine is in the cellar and corresponds to the NFT, and that's critical to something like this working.
Great. Well, let's just finish off then some of the technicalities of the NFT. The Meerlust lot will be stored at Meerlust in a special NFT vault. So as the owner, you can go and have a look. You can even go and draw the bottle at Meerlust if you would like to. The process is still quite manual. Strauss does the auction and you do the back end blockchain stuff. But it is possible to really trade and draw the wines in the future.
That's right. The trading of the NFTs are quite simple. Redeeming it at the seller is a process that we facilitate.
Fantastic. Okay, let's move on to the next wine to talk about, the canonical Paul Sauer. I think in the last few years, Paul Sauer has really ratcheted up a notch or two. It was always a very historically incredible wine. The 100 points for the 2015 pushed up the price significantly on the secondary market, and the demand now for Paul Sauer really outstrips supply. When Wine Cellar gets its allocation, it doesn't even need to publicize it. There are clients out there that will take it every single year, showing that there's huge demand for the product. So the canonical Paul Sauer NFT is a Millennium collection from 2000 all the way through to 2025, a total of 66 bottles. Andre, Paul Sauer has always been one of your favorites?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a legendary wine, obviously, that was reaffirmed when it started getting these spectacular scores that nobody else was getting at the time. So it really is a true South African iconic wine and is inspirational for anybody. And when you were talking about the reminting of the blockchain, and I made me think about how, as a winemaker and a wine lover, I'd want to break into a bottle or two. And I think it's great that all of these lots are sold, as one NFT, and then each individual bottle is also an NFT. And that's what, if you so desire, you can break into a bottle and you still have all of this value and just rare bottles to work with.
But also you could be a consumer or an investor around the world bidding from wherever and never even see the bottles and trade them and even have them shipped if you'd like. So as you say, this really does open up the market to
Isn't that also, I think, the importance for us as Strauss and Company to work on this together, because we're lucky in a sense that we've established the art side of it and the reach that we bring from the art community or the art buyers, that we can bring that, that relationship to help to expose the opportunity of these wines to a new base or a new buyer, which I think is important. But you're right, that branding is part of the confidence.
Well, Suze, it does help that you sell Sterns for 20 million rand because fine wines in South Africa have been traditionally, I wouldn't say cheap, but they haven't been as expensive as the great wines of France or of America, for instance. And we've been breaking boundaries. Last year, the 1820 Grand Constance, which was the large property where Klein Constantia came from, that reached almost R1 million on the platform. And that was really quite something.
Very groundbreaking for the wine department, but I can tell you as well, Alistair was the auctioneer. It was pretty cool to watch him sell that too. I think when you stand in the rostrum, the value that you see in front of you when you look at a lot, the whole package is the story of where it's come from, who's made it, who's painted it. So yes, I think the wine market in the last 3 years has just grown phenomenally. And I agree with Andrea. I think the opportunity to grow further and be more significant internationally is only starting. I think the potential is massive, and I think something that is groundbreaking is this NFT auction. I mean, I can't wait to see what is the next adventure. I mean, I take it off to you, team, because you've really achieved so much in such a short time.
And what do you think about the Rubicon 94 that you've got in your glass? I see you drinking it faster than Kat-Jan. I think he's trying to remain professional. From a professorial point of view, I don't think drinking and work was hand in hand. Not like the wine industry. What do you think of this? Really mature, 28 years old South African wine.
I'm obviously, for me, it's absolutely delicious. I think after the morning we've all been having in the office, this is even a bigger treat to be drinking it on a Wednesday afternoon in Cape Town. So thank you. But I mean, holding with the most fantastic taste. Thank you.
And I think something we try to see with a project like this is also bringing in new people into appreciating wine. That we already having the wine industry become interested in NFTs, but also the crypto community introduce them to wine collection, and wine appreciation. And I enjoy wine, but I'm no wine expert. I'm a bit of a pleb at the table. So when I taste this, run me through the tasting notes, Roland. What's
Well, I was going to ask Andrea because not only does Andrea and partner Chris make some of the greatest wines, but they have an incredible collection of old wines. You have to taste and know the older wines to make the great modern wines, Andrea.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Is that you have to know what good wine tastes like to be able to be the next generation of winemaking. And these older bottles are so important to us. Wine evolves the way societies do. They evolve with societies. And so you do get slight changes in style over time, changes in viticulture. And I love tasting these wines because it does take you back to a place and time. There's not actually much in life that when you taste or that when you experience it, that it actually takes you back to a place in time, and opening up an older bottle absolutely does that. So it's beautifully balanced. It's so fresh. And I think it's a great example about what the lot has to offer.
All right, let's change tack completely, going from fine wine to types of blockchain technology. I've been talking to a number of potential bidders over the last couple of days, hearing all their crazy cryptocurrency stories. One gentleman yesterday was telling me about how he almost put $1,000 into it in 2010, but then just didn't, and did the sum a bit later, and he would be worth 1.3 trillion rand today. So I'm sure there are lots of stories about that. But just talk about what technology did you mint this NFT?
So if you're not really a blockchain expert, you might be familiar with something like Bitcoin, the original blockchain that really created this first cryptocurrency that could be traded freely without permission. And after Bitcoin, we saw innovation with other kinds of blockchains. And one of the challenges that the crypto community tried to solve was, how do you create really strongly programmable contracts, a smart money where you can define what the rules are for the money moving around, and not just money, also tokens representing other things. The first big smart contract blockchain was Ethereum. So you might have heard about Ethereum and Ether, the currency there. And it's become the blockchain that has a collection of smart contract technology that's influenced several other spin-off cryptocurrencies and blockchains as well. We work on what's called a second layer blockchain called Polygon. So Polygon makes use of the Ethereum blockchain as well, but it's considerably more cost effective. It doesn't cost us tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars to mint an NFT, and it's environmentally friendly. So you might also have seen reports of blockchains like Bitcoin and Ether really guzzling energy. It's a topic that's very close to my heart. I have a master's student at the university doing research on how crypto blockchains can encourage the deployment of renewable energy installations. We see it as a tipping point for renewables, but at the same time, when we're working with something like wine, something that depends on our environment, our climate, and the health of the climate, it's critical that we work with a blockchain that doesn't end up boiling the oceans, to use the hyperbole that you sometimes see in the press. So Polygon is very friendly in that regard, and it's a pragmatic choice as well, because it's widely supported on marketplaces like OpenSea. But there are other blockchains as well that you can also use for NFTs, and these are ones we're keeping an eye on.
Okay, so sorry, we're focusing on you, but you're the wealth of information here. So you've bought the NFT, then you were talking about a wallet. Just talk us through there. Cold wallets, hot wallets, that type of thing.
So wallet is your address on the blockchain, and everything that lands at that wallet is the stuff that you own. You have something that's called the private key to the wallet. It's like a super big PIN code that's stored somewhere and allows you to move things out of that wallet again, to pay somebody or to sign transactions and things like that. Obviously, if you lose this private key, you're in trouble, because anyone can then go and claim your wines, and you wouldn't like that. So for example, for the Strauss Root wallet, where we create these NFTs, that's a wallet that's never touched the internet. It's a little piece of hardware that's called a completely cold wallet. We know on the internet what its address is, so we can put things inside that wallet, and we can plug it into a computer and mint the NFTs from there. But then we remove it from the computer again, and it lives in a vault, in a physical vault somewhere, and that ensures that hackers can't get to that root NFTs and do nasty stuff. So that's called a cold wallet. If you say you're the winning bidder for one of the lots, and you are a crypto savvy person, you want to pay using a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or USDC, you can provide us with your wallet. You pay the funds, and automatically the NFT moves to your wallet on the blockchain. But if you're a wine enthusiast that and you maybe haven't played around with blockchain that much, we create a wallet on your behalf. We keep it safe on the same system that I described now, so that it's kept secure on your behalf. And perhaps one day, 6 months, a year from now, we can help you move it to a wallet under your control. And that's called a custodial wallet.
So where do you see this in 10 years' time? We're not going to have the normal wallets in our pocket anymore. It's all going to be digital, read through a barcode on our forehead, or?
So that's what we
Might
call
be
Web
hot.
3. That's the next transition we're seeing in the internet. So if Web 2 was the big era of social networks and society sort of forming new organizations and interrelationships on the internet, Web 3 is this melding of ownership with the web as well. And at Fanify, we certainly see this as the future, that we're going to have our digital wallets under our direct control on the devices we carry around.
Just to reassure some people who maybe still want to buy in Rand, that you can pay for these in Rand too, so that doesn't put
That's
people
right.
off who don't maybe feel they can learn from you, but they can still bid physically in Rand too.
In fact, maybe it's a good time to reiterate these collections. Even if you don't like cryptocurrency or NFTs or what we're talking about, you can still buy the collection. You can have it delivered to your home, and you never have to say the word NFT ever again. If you like wines and want to just collect them, you certainly can. We just, from our side, see that NFTs are a better way of wrapping these collections, of trading them, of investing in them. So let's just wrap up the Meerlust Rubicon NFT, because it is the largest of the NFTs. It spans 50 vintages, and Meerlust have in some vintages not produced a Rubicon. So it isn't 50 consecutive vintages, and in the future, if they don't produce one, it'll move on to the next. So we estimate this to mature around 2037, around there. So it's quite a long time, and who knows how many times it's going to transact in those next 15 odd years. But 288 bottles. The bottles do become less as you get down to the 1980, as you can imagine. Meerlust have offered as much as they could with this NFT, but a really grandeur 288 bottles, and every year you're getting a case. So what a fantastic lot.
Yeah, it's absolutely groundbreaking. I mean, it really is.
Okay, so how do we bid, Susie? We really want to buy the NFT. Take us through that process.
So it's very simple. You go onto the Strauss & Company website, and you click on the sale, and you go in and register and place your bid. I mean, it's literally as simple as that. I think the important thing for collectors to know is that all the information about the lots and the process is on each item or each lot. There are images, there are places to ask more questions if you need it. The sale will culminate at an 8 o'clock finish on the Monday the 25th. So it's really important that if you're in the bidding, and that you make sure that if you need help, phone, we'll help with pleasure. But in that last hour, it can get quite competitive. So either put in some bids, put in your maximum amount, or make sure that you keep bidding, because sometimes the bidding can be ferocious and you wouldn't want to miss out. So it's an 8 o'clock ending, and hopefully we see quite a lot of action with lots of people trying to fight over these fantastic lots. If you get into the bidding and you bid just as at 8 o'clock and there are 2 people bidding, there is extension. So you can carry on bidding until somebody drops out, which is also quite exciting. So if you're new to it, don't miss out on that opportunity. But effectively, you are paying in Rand, but you have the ability to use crypto. We've got a relationship, obviously, where we can instruct the wallet. I suppose then is it a hot wallet because it's got lots of money in it. Anyway, that process comes back. You can pay in crypto, but we settle the bill with us in Rand.
That's right. So when you register as a bidder, as I understand, you can indicate whether you
you can
do
choose
prefer to pay
exactly.
in crypto.
Okay.
So
and-
we've got all of that handled as well. But I mean, it's a pretty groundbreaking auction to be doing online. I just now dream of the reach being a truly global reach, which I think we could achieve.
And once you get outbid, you get notified that you've been outbid, so that's quite fun as well.
Absolutely, you can get notified by SMS or email. And yeah, and if at the end where it gets very busy, I do recommend that if you're in the bidding, often leave an absent bid, because the computer will react quicker to a bid in the system than you trying to maybe press the button if your internet or the Wi-Fi goes down. If you're in a place where you suddenly have load shedding, we'll help with pleasure. Call us.
Okay, great. Well, that's one final question on the technicalities. The KYC process is becoming quite important. Know your customer. What sort of checks do you do? The last thing we would want is the wrong money going into the lot, right?
Absolutely. So when you register with us, we require the know your client details of your ID and where you live, or your passport if you're international. But then if you choose to, obviously we won't release any lots until the currency is cleared through our accounts. But if you choose to pay in crypto, then Fanfare is helping us to do the verifications and the know your client details through your side of the
That's correct.
partnership.
Just inspecting the wallets and the background behind that.
All right, let's go to the second last lot then. It's the Klein Constantia Van de Constance, arguably South Africa's most iconic wine. Andrea, maybe you want to comment on the Van de Constance. I'm sure when you were still a young winemaker, you saw it as a sweet wine and looked at it and thought, maybe one day I can make such a sweet wine. What is your history with Van de Constance?
I mean, South Africa has an amazing history of sweet wines, high quality sweet wines that have been in demand around the world for a few hundred years, which is pretty good history. And but obviously with sweet wines, with sherries and port style wines as well. So South Africa's notoriety with sweet wines is incredible. And so when I started making wine, making sweet wine for myself was also my desire to be part of that history, and this being the Van de Constance being the most iconic one to look at.
Well, fabulous. That goes all the way back to 1986, as I mentioned, and that's a good time to talk about pricing. The wines were priced at what they've been bought for on the Strauss Co platform in the past. And in the Klein Constantia's case, we over the last 3 years have sold every single vintage. We've sold every single vintage of Klein Constantia, Van de Constance, 2012 and before, which gave us a very good idea of how to price the NFTs. That said, the wineries wouldn't want to let go of their fine wines, at a nominal price, and certainly there'll be some competitive bidding to get them to the higher estimates. We're going to taste the final wine. Chris, Andrea's husband, is going to give me the bottle, and we're going to taste the Oleracé, only because we don't get to taste this very often. Maybe, Andrea, you can talk about this while I pour you a glass.
Yeah, absolutely. Oleracé for us is the most special wine that we've ever created. It is Chenin Blanc. It's a sweet wine, a vin de paille, or a straw wine, meaning it's dried off the vine. And everything that is amazing in life takes time. I always say there's no instant gratification in wine. And this wine started 15 years ago with our very first vintage of Malinu. Thank you. And what we started doing was fractionally blending each vintage together to create something incredibly complex, layered, and bulletproof. The wines that take time are very stable, beautiful, linear, gorgeous, complex wines. So the first wine that we created was a 8 vintage blend, and then we released the last one in 2020, which got South Africa's first 100 points from a U.S. publication, and the first 100-point Chenin Blanc from South Africa as well.
So for those that maybe don't know what that means, Andrew, tell us what that means. 100 points from Neil Martin.
Isn't that a hot wallet? Isn't that what we would say? Top dog prize.
Look, at the end of the day, we make wines that we love and not trying to impress specific people. But when the top journalist in the world thinks that your wine gets a perfect score, that really does feel good.
Yeah,
so
congratulations.
but it really is fantastic, not just for us, but for South African wine. It shows how amazing South African wine is, how amazing Chenin Blanc is, and we're absolutely thrilled that we were able to release it. But as I started to mention earlier, it took 15 years to get to this point. And now that the wines are developed and complex enough through this fractional blending system, we will be releasing it more frequently, and not just after 7 and then 5 years, but more frequently, but in much smaller volumes. So this actually is going to become harder to get on a year-to-year basis, but we think it's just getting better and better, and that's why we want to be able to share it.
And Andrew, that extraordinarily beautiful bottle, the design, and I mean, this is just...
So the name Alerase is a play on words of Solera itself, which is a system of fractionally blending, and traditionally that would be done in a pyramid of barrels. So the label and the bottle represents what was called a Solera traditionally.
And Andrew, you're obviously famous for other wines as well, Syrah and Chenin, and it's taken you 15 years, but you're really right at the top of the industry. What's next for Molyneux?
I feel that, we're at the point now where, when we started in the industry, my husband and I were both first generation in the industry, and we've been building and we've been experimenting and we've been growing. But now it's about maturing and refining. So we own our own vineyards now. We are refining them more and more. We work with other top people in the business to make sure that we are doing the best that we can do, and that it's getting better and more age-worthy and more investable.
But in a sense, the lot that you're selling is also encapsulating that whole story. And yet you're also adding the future. I mean, it actually is just... It's quite inspiring.
And one of the nice things about the NFT is it actually includes the reviews and description of the wine itself. And I was setting up this metadata for the NFTs a couple of days ago, and obviously reading through all of these critic reviews, and my mouth watered.
Well,
So
now
I've
you
been
can taste
anticipating this taste for a while now. This is brilliant.
Well, that's really the point is, in the future, all these wines, now that they're on the blockchain with all the data, you don't need to replicate that as a wine merchant anymore. It's there. It could be immediately put onto your website with all the information. Everyone knows all the provenance. It just makes for much easier trading. And really, that's the next question, Susie. I know you're taking some time with that.
I'm enjoying the wine.
It is stunning.
Not
so
sure
long.
you should get between me and the wine.
You don't actually need to sip it very often, because the flavor and the taste just sits in your mouth. I think I'll be driving back home and I'll still be tasting
And
it.
the colour, wow.
But Susie, the question is Strauss now going to be selling NFTs and art? Where to from here?
Well, good question. I think it's a bit like Andrew. It's that feeling of what's in the future. Listen, what you're doing here is pretty groundbreaking and incredibly exciting for us to be involved in. But I think we also have to be cognitive of what's going on in the global art market. I mean, NFTs, the Beeple that I know we all mention, it started at Christie's with $1, and look where it landed up at $68 million. We have to be cognitive of the story of provenance, the story of ownership, the fact that we can digitalize parts of the art market that maybe have been harder to explain or harder to sell. But at the end of the day, I still think there is buying that Irma Stern, which is the real thing. Don't know if you're going to be able to digitalize a copy of that and make and be able to get $10 million for it, or 10 million rand, should I say. But yes, the answer is that it's very much part of our future. How we build it in and where we go to, I suppose that's the challenge for all of us. But we're starting, and I think with this groundbreaking initiative, and congratulations again for doing it. And I think, we're in a world that is new, and it's opening us to a market that is new and different people. And I think in an auction house, you've always got to be cognitive of where new collectors are coming from, new buyers are coming from. We've always got to try and make sure that we're cutting edge and connecting. Otherwise, I think it wouldn't be an appropriate... auction house must be appropriate. And I think these are the assets and part of the journey that we've got to go on in order to keep building a market.
Well, sorry, Andrew. We've got some incredible brands here. If you look on the table, Meerlust, Molyneux, Canoncop, Klein Constantia, Villafonte, Strauss, and all collaborating together. And Andrea, you wanted to comment?
No, I was going to actually ask a question to Susie that beyond the idea of digitizing artwork is some of the cool provenance behind artwork is who owned it before, and that can increase the value. Like if Barack Obama owned a Irma Stern, it's going to be worth more than maybe the one that maybe
you owned.
If I owned one. But that's what NFTs do as well.
And actually that for us in the art market is also quite an intriguing moment, because when we do sell things, we don't disclose unless somebody wants to tell you that they belong to, they want you to know it belonged to a collection. We don't really tell you that it was owned by you when I sell it to you. And how that is going to play out, I think is going to be really interesting. But saying that, it could be a really positive thing when we deal with ownership and maybe fakes and forgeries and validating some of the areas in the art market that have become suspicious. When you've got a blockchain technology added to it, then you're going to know the history of the artwork. But I think there's not only that who owns it. I think that fact that you mentioned about the pricing, that if you bought that Irma Stern for 100 Rand 25 years ago and now you're selling it for much more, even just that inflation and that journey is documented, rather than, oh my goodness, we've lost the original receipt and we think we bought it for this, or we think this person owned it. You're definitely going to now establish tight chains of ownership. So it's very interesting for a market like ours. And we spend a lot of time in the background before we go to auction, spending hours researching who owned it, who was the person before the person that we got it from, and before that. And maybe in 30 years' time, we're going to have to only worry about the pre-2020 stuff, and we're not going to have to worry about the ownership post that.
So by default on the blockchain, you're anonymous. So as the wine or the art trades, we can see it moving, but it's up to the owner of the wallet to provide additional information, whether they want to reveal their true identity.
Well, that'll make a few people feel happy if they want to be Barack Obama and not actually necessarily disclose that they've bought your wine.
But hopefully Beyonce buys one of these and it becomes super cool.
We're talking to you, Beyonce. Gert-Jan, in a couple of weeks back, you launched an incredible NFT with Stratum Fundamava. Maybe you can just talk about that, because that was also quite groundbreaking.
I just wanted to touch on that when you mentioned the digital artworks, because I think where you're going to see NFT and art really shine would be in new forms of art or alternative forms of art.
Because he's a land artist.
He's a land artist.
Yes.
He creates these incredible installations deep in the Karoo or somewhere in the wilderness across the world. And as an artist, he experiences the creation and what it looks like. And it stays in nature for maybe days, maybe weeks before nature reclaims the artwork. And it's traditionally been very difficult for him to really make a living as an artist, a profession as an artist, because some people called it an impossible art form, because it can't really be used to create a career or living. So what we helped him with is creating these digital originals of his land art installations, where through the process of creating the art, once it's installed, he, from an artist's perspective, captures digital media of the artwork. And ironically, I think in the past, most people who knew his artwork knew it from digital versions that they saw on the internet or in the news. But now we're helping him commercialize that, to create a digital original. And in this project, the Stratum 52 collection, we're selling the full commercial rights to each artwork. So if you purchase a Stratum, it's not just a picture that you can put on the background of your phone. It's a print quality image that you can use it to create serialized prints. You can use it commercially if you want to make it your brand identity online. It's you the owner of that.
So he's able to transcend the work eroding because it's on land. He's now actually making it a permanent, sort of has longevity.
That's right. We creating digital permanence to something that's a very, very fleeting art form.
There's an interesting another side of the art world, is that a lot of museums, particularly in the COVID period, have struggled with attendance. And there's a number of institutions who've actually made NFT or digital artworks of major pieces in the museums, and then they've been selling that as a way of raising funds to keep the doors open. I mean, it's quite an interesting opportunity for people to own a version of a famous painting. But for me, I'd still maybe like to have the original Van Gogh on my bedroom wall, but I don't think that's possible. But anyway, you can dream of all these possibilities with this new adventures.
Yeah, me too. Memberships with NFT, I think that's also going to be something that's really going to be powerful moving forward. So are there any other questions that maybe we haven't answered today? We're going to start wrapping up. I think we've touched on everything. Andrea, any closing comments from your side?
No, for me, I think it's so exciting to be, part of the future in a way. This is, the first fine wine auction in South Africa that's done by NFT. So, I mean, to be part of the first, I was watching a documentary on Julia Child on the airplane on the way here. And it was amazing to think that 60 years ago, there was no such thing as a cooking show. And if you think of, you know, the Master Chef and all the cookbooks and everything that you get today, you know, when you're the first at something, you're remembered for always being the first. So I, you know, congratulate you, you know, and Strauss for being the first to do this in South Africa.
Well, thank you to you and the Molyneux and to the wonderful brands that we have to work with. We were talking about how this would be very difficult to replicate in other countries because the brands don't often market themselves together as well, whereas the 5 producers here, I think, are very good friends, and they're often co-marketing and really pushing Brand South Africa forward, which is lovely to see. Gert-Jan, any closing commentary from your side?
I think when you see new technology, exciting new technology enter the world, there's this inevitable period of hype and mania when people jump on the bandwagon. And we at FanFi, we're really trying to move beyond that hype and try to figure out where the really useful, practical, real-world use cases of new tech lie. And I think this is such a nice showcase of what you can do in a way that's really useful to people who want to own, want to collect, and perhaps even want to trade in fine wines. So kudos for setting this up. I think it's brilliant.
Well, thanks for doing all the internet work there. Susie?
I'm like Andrea. I think the fact that we're encapsulating something that's future is, for me, particularly exciting because we don't really know what the next harvests are going to be like. I mean, if anything goes like this taste, I mean, wow. I look for, well, the lucky person who buys it. Maybe the parting comment was bid. Get onto the computer and bid. But I agree with you. For me, it's that encapsulation of what the future will hold in terms of that you've got this to compare it with, but what will the next vintages be? I think that's the bit that I'm particularly excited about.
Well, thank you, Susie. If you've got any more questions about the auction, wine and NFTs, please contact Strauss and we'll get back to you. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for the panel. And thank you very much for listening in, and have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon wherever you are.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.